Welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted to be joined as always by my friend, my colleague, my weekly preview cohort, Elliott Greg. Elliott, thanks for joining me, mate. This is all about December 2nd. We're talking about the main event in my hometown of Belfast. SSE Arena takes centre stage as Michael Conlan returns and he faces Britain's Jordan Gill. Elliott, this is a fight that I think a lot of people expect Conlan to win probably, but it's another name. Jordan Gill is obviously a former European champion. A few questions I kind of want to ask you, and I'm sure we'll get into predictions, how we see the fight playing out, and everything like that. But as we like to do now, we like to go straight in, don't we? So we are going to go straight in, and I'm going to ask you a simple question of: Will Michael Conlan ever become world champion?
Paul, firstly, thank you very much for that eloquent introduction, and also I suppose, the misnomer of referring to that question as a simple question. I think I'm thinking about this because you kind of gave me a little bit of a heads up that this sort of question might be coming. And to be honest with you, I'm going back and forth on it, Paul. And that's not me sitting on the fence. It's me basically saying that when I look at the champions in that division, do I give him a chance of beating some of them? Yes, I do. Do I think he will? Potentially not, though, in the sense that I'm not sure if he fought Ramirez now, would I back Conlan or would I back Ramirez? I think it's a close fight. Similarly, as I would say, if he fought someone like Ray Vargas. I mean, I know your man Figueroa is obviously down there as well, and I think I'd probably back Figueroa to beat Conlan. So out of those names, I wouldn't necessarily make him a favourite against anyone, even though I think he could actually outbox Ramirez. But then I look at the fact that he's 31. So depending on, there's a little bit of time there, but obviously he's got those losses when he stepped up into title level. But then equally got to look at it and go, he was beating Leewood comfortably until he got stopped in that last round. So obviously got the potential. The only thing he's been, heavily outclassed by was Alberto Lopez, last time out. So it's tough, man. It's a tough one. My head says yes, he can. Yes, he can, but I don't think he will. If that makes sense, is kind of where I'm at with it, which is actually a real shame because I really like Mike Conlan. He's for me one of the most eye-catching fighters. Just beautiful style to watch. But this is I just got this feeling that he's just not going to summit that last summit, frankly, to be honest with you, even though I think he has the ability to do so and will be unfortunate given what happened with Leewood.
I mean, I think you answered that question really well. I think I said that it was a simple question, but I know it's not. I was lying to you. It really isn't a simple question because I completely agree and understand where you're coming from. Talent wise, just talent wise, you look at some people from Ireland, some people from the UK who have won a world title even recently, and you're like, talent and ability wise, Michael Conlan is better than you. But then it's all about the right fights at the right times, the opponent, it's so many different variables. And you know, obviously the first one for Michael Conlan's first world title challenge, as you mentioned there, he was well ahead on the scorecards until that knockdown in the 11th round, which was, he is still adamant wasn't a knockdown, but threw him off. And then obviously that conclusive knockout in the 12th to Leewood. Then obviously you go to his last fight, and I was there, of course, against Luis Alberto Lopez. And I'm not gonna hide and say Belfast bias aside, I genuinely thought Conlan had the tools to beat Luis Alberto Lopez, judging by how Lopez had done against Warrington, and how close a fight that was. I thought, you know what, Conlan can beat Lopez, but obviously the game plan was all wrong there. He tried to stand and trade with him. And, first rule of boxing, if you're fighting a Mexican, don't stand and trade. Um, so yeah, I think it's interesting, mate. Obviously now that Woods moved up to super feather, that title is vacant. Whether Kolmatov fights somebody for that belt, or you know, who does he fight? If Conlan wins this, is he in line maybe for a shot at the vacant title? Could a fight with Josh Warrington down the line even be for a world title? Potentially. I mean, obviously, I don't see him beating Lopez after what happened there now. You mentioned a few other names there. Ray Vargas. Winnable, in my opinion. I don't think Ruby C. Ramirez is winnable, and I don't think Brandon Figueroa is winnable. And yeah, I think that. Oh, it's really difficult. It's really, you know what? I mean, neither of us have given a definitive answer here because it really is genuinely difficult to answer that question. We can't talk about it all day. We've got to move on. And this question essentially even more difficult, Elliot, than the first question. And this obviously, of course, takes Jordan Gill into consideration as well. They're fighting on December 2nd. Come December 2nd at midnight, or Sunday, December 3rd, whatever it is, do you think whoever loses this fight should hang up the gloves and call it a day.
Oh, um, I mean, you've got me on the ropes and you're battering me. I think I don't know. I mean, we'll go to predictions in a minute, but I think look, if Conlan did lose this fight, I would be surprised to the point where I would have to start asking questions as to whether those fights are out there that you were talking about. I do think there are still huge fights out there for Conlan. You mentioned Warrington. I mean, I know Lee Wood's moved up, but at some point, if they could somehow have a rematch, even if it's up at super feather, that'd be great. Other names in and around the division, if he fights for a title, I think there's big fights out there for Conlan still, especially with the fan base he brings. And obviously, you were saying, the rabid Irish fan base that you were a part of in last time out. So I don't think he will necessarily retire. Jordan Gill's a tough one because I look at this fight and I think, to be perfectly honest with you, Jordan Gill's not on that level. So I don't think Jordan Gill's at world title level. I don't think he's at world level in that same way. You looked at him last time out, he lost to Martinez, didn't he? And Martinez, is a fighter that's obviously been at world level. But again, like at the downside of his career, you're looking at it going, well, really, you need to sort of beat that sort of fighter at that stage of your career to have that chance to get into that conversation. So it's a tough one for me. I don't think necessarily Gill should retire in that sense, but equally, I don't think he should. I think he should be retired from fighting at this level. I think if he went down and kept himself kind of around European level, if he wants fights at that sort of level, fine. But I think, to be honest with you, the names the better names of the division shouldn't be matched with Jordan Gill. And I include, frankly, Conlan. I think Conlan's far too good to be fighting Jordan Gill, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's again looking at both fighters. Firstly, I'll go with Jordan Gill. Should he retire if he loses? I actually don't think so. I think that, yeah, as you mentioned, at this level, maybe he would just be done. But Jordan Gill would still be a very strong British featherweight, in my opinion. Obviously, he won the European title before, beating Kareem Murphy. But then that was a fight that he was knocked down on and looked out. He looked out, and then he just punched from the goals and he won the fight. But he's a European champion. Nobody can ever take that away from him. But at British level, I think there's some really good fights for him. He's shown in the past that he's kind of a bit above that. Obviously beating Reece Bellotti, Jason Cunningham, people like that. So I don't think Jordan Gill should retire. I think you put it really well there, mate. Could maybe retire from fights of this level. If I'm Michael Conlan, a lot of people were maybe humming and hawing as to whether he was going to call it a day after the Lopez fight. And he hasn't. But I think if Conlan loses to Jordan Gill, there's nowhere he can go, really. I would be more inclined to say that Conlan should retire if he loses. But then again, as you alluded to, I really don't. I fully expect him to win this fight, to be honest with you. So I don't see him retiring. There's some massive fights out there, and yeah. But however, if he does lose, I could maybe see him hanging the gloves up, to be quite honest with you, because I don't know where it could go. Which kind of leads us nicely on to predictions, Elliot, just before we finish up. How do you see this fight playing out in Belfast on December 2nd? You've mentioned that you favour Conlan slightly. Do you think it'll be a points job? He obviously has 18 wins, 9 KOs. Or do you think that he could maybe get the stoppage?
You know what, Paul? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna, I think please our Irish fans here when I say that I think Conlan's going to win, but I actually think he's going to get the stoppage. I think he'll stop Gill. Like you said, 9 wins in 18, 9 KOs in 18. Not a massive puncher. Obviously, we've seen that through some of his other fights. But then, like I said, he's a level. He's a level above Jordan Gill, frankly. So I think, to be honest with you, we saw him get rid of Murphy, didn't we? Was it first round knockout, wasn't it? And it took Gill 9 rounds to get Murphy out of there and struggle with him a bit. I just think Conlan can kind of stop this mid rounds. To be honest, I don't think it'll be like he's not going to come out and sort of stop him early, like first two. That's not really Conlan's style. He's not got that punch power. But I can just genuinely see him just overwhelming him somewhere between sort of like 5 to 8, somewhere like that. 5 might be a bit early, maybe 6 to 8. But I actually think the stoppage is on here for Conlan. And I think a good fight. Obviously, he lost heavily to Lopez. So in a way, I can understand why he's come back in here, get your confidence back up, get back in front of the Irish fans, find it again, etc., etc. But I think, yeah, when I said slight favourite, I'm actually sort of 99% Conlan's going to win it. I don't really give Gill any chance in this fight. I really don't. But, I've got things wrong before, but I make Conlan almost guaranteed cast iron favourite, and I think the stoppage is on.
It's 2 for 2. 2 for 2, baby. I think he's going to get the stoppage here as well. I was there for the Murphy fight, and he kind of blew him away, and I didn't really expect that. Don't think he'll do the same to Gill, but you look at both of them. They've both been defeated twice, both via stoppage. But Conlan's at a whole different level. His 2 stoppage defeats, obviously. I think, mid rounds, mate. You know what? We're bang on anywhere between 5 rounds, 5 and 8. I think to be probably a Conlan stoppage. And yeah, mate, I completely concur with what you're saying. And just before we finish, I just want to mention that you know what, I'm actually really looking forward to this card as a whole. Obviously, Eddie Hearn's come in and working with Conlan boxing for this. We got Tyrone McKenna, Lewis Crocker, kind of a Battle of Belfast welterweight fight. Brilliant, brilliant fight.
Come on, Crocker.
Good
Come
team.
on, the Croc.
Yeah, exactly. You've got Kevin Ajarko, Troy Williamson's in a cracking middleweight fight. Big step up for Kevin Ajarko. You've also got a good fight for Sean McComb as he fights Sam Maxwell, obviously, former British champion as well. So yeah, cracking fight, mate. Really enjoyed that chat. Thanks for joining me. And guys, let us know your thoughts on this fight. Is it Conlan stoppage written all over? Do you think it going points, or can you see Jordan Gill potentially sending Mick Conlan into retirement? How do you see it playing out? So yeah, once again, thanks very much, Elliot, for joining me, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Paul. And again, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.